think that I will for all mother sentient beings, all sentient beings of the three realms in samsara who have been my mothers and whose number is as limitless as the sky, will bring them to a state of enlightenment, and for this I will listen to the teachings with this motivation, and so this motivation of bodhicitta, of the good heart, is extremely important.
And then Karma Limba Dekente, Guru Rinpoche, Jeba, Yangagi Nane, Chongro, Losawa, Lui Chesingi, Namchu.
So then, as mentioned yesterday, this Tibetan Karma Limpa, who discovered this text, was the Chongro Lotsawa Lui Gyaltsen, one of the 25 disciples of Guru Rinpoche.
The Korangi Yabdi, the Korangi Tata to cover it in Tapo Yuriki, the Kir de Latin Korangi Yabdi, Dzogchen Ninda, Sanje the Kinchi, Yabdi, Dzogchen Chembucheredo.
Dzogchen Ninda?
Sange the Kinchi.
Ninda Sange.
Ninda Sanje Kisere.
The Karma Limba,
Karma Limba Kisere, Yabdi.
So then the father of Karma Limba was also a great accomplished master from the land of Dakpa in Tibet, and was called a great Siddha, or great realized master, Dzogchen Ninda Sangye. He was born in the like the 16th cycle of that, which corresponds more or less to the like the 12th or 13th century. And Karma Limba then he didn't become a monk, but he was like following the like the vows, or using the vows of the Ngakpa practitioners. Already when he was very young, he had like limitless excellent qualities, like clairvoyance, knowing others' minds, being able to show magical abilities and so forth.
Bardo Thödol,
and it was at the time of Guru Rinpoche that Guru Rinpoche gave to his previous incarnation all these teachings of this the Bardo Thödol, the liberation through hearing in the Bardo, in the intermediate state, or the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And then for the sake of future generations, Guru Rinpoche was hid this teaching, and to be revealed and in later times by Karma Limpa.
Bardo Thödol defendi Bardo number 2 ginane, then kene parte kapsare. Bardo number 2 ginane.
So we are now in the Bardo Thödol. There's the 6 Bardos. It talks about 6 Bardos. The first one is the Bardo of this life.
Kene Bardo kapsa tangara sulla tene. Yaporto tene kerechewa, yaporto kochewa. Sosoge tene nyamnyong cheya sosoge tene. Semla shaye tendo tene aratoge Bardo Thödol defendi pe yakuyore.
And in this, while we are now in this Bardo, in this intermediate state of this life, then it is really absolutely necessary that we understand and that we get experience through this teaching of the Bardo Thödol.
Bardo Thödol 되게 말아서 이게 이제 퇴바 삼기 이제 돌와 이제 rekpa 삼기 돌와 통와 삼기 돌와 이제 디나 용돌라서 디나시 mambo 요래 mambo 예배나니 다다 말아서 값도 봐버지 퇴조 소속이 되니 이 말로 계란속이 년지 퇴조 되게 퇴바다 조화를 해서
So here we talk about the Bardo Thödol, which is usually translated as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. So it means like Bardo Thödol means liberation through hearing in the intermediate state in the Bardo, and there's also what we call like that means like by merely hearing this teaching one will be liberated, or we have what we call like liberation through touching, liberation through seeing, liberation through like tasting, liberation through wearing and so forth. So there's many ways of liberation. So in this case is that we ourselves will, by listening to this teaching and others reading this teaching to us, then we will attain liberation.
이제 전에는 말래. 모토로 나타기도.
여기 정말 그 교육스는 되게 되는 게 막 교육말이나.
또 로지 말래 빠지래봐. 그 모토로 나타기도.
양가 정말 된다. 저한테 든 받상 되는 게 교육 말에 되는 지나.
그래.
무슨 관계지?
그래서
there's a few new people today, so Lama says I want to make them receive these teachings, so I will read again. Maybe without the translator. So I will just give this instead, not the instructions, but just like the direct instructions which are given here. Maybe a logo.
Oh, yeah, logo. Since how much for the logic of whatever. The motor catches you. Kiram Tonga. 기리기부 체계모 교단이 람텔베디올라 바파토 베헤데
다디 물람 겹차이라
그래 답로
어두두두 알았어
기리기부 체계모 교단이 람텔베디올라 바파토 베 교랑 옥체마케도 큐라 버도 담보 시위에들 시에자와 나라 라면 모티베 된데 지옥 제바당 주니 나와다 동전제네와 세동 타예미 베릭비티미 젬바 식천네 원어 디에도서 교랑기 모세버게라 디행알라 소지 예자티 디에도서 모트도
So Lama says I will only read the actual like introductions, and so it says, "O child of Buddha nature, called the name of the dying person, the time has now come for you to seek a path. As soon as your respiration ceases, the outer respiration ceases, the luminosity known as the inner radiance of the first intermediate state, which your spiritual teacher formally introduced you to, will arise. Immediately, the respiration ceases. All phenomena will become empty and utterly naked like space. At the same time, a naked awareness will arise, not extraneous to yourself, but radiant, empty, and without horizon or center. At that moment, you should personally recognize this intrinsic nature and rest in the state of that experience. I too will introduce it to you at that time."
기리기부 세바 라마인 종발라 투게 마양발 세셀 제인도 게 중유시 최조다 신 마이 민니 벨라티케도 기리기부 다치와 세자와 데렐레네도 비 게라셈게 디달도 되지 게마 다니 지위들라 밤에 도기 다리 치와들라 때네 점 인제 자축게 셈 바시기 투게데 남가다냐 베셈젠 탐지 기 된도 도베산제 도버라 저 냠도 셈 개바다 개버도 다리 셈진 탐지게 된데 최고 유술 최규꿀 모셔버자대 디행하라 차제점 뭐 조경으로 돕네 셈진 탐지게 된저 대마토장 바르돌라 바르도 모셔버 제라 바르도 송죽 차자진 공인도 제네 간라 간들게 나오게 남기 타다냐베 셈진 탐지게 된저 냠베 셈기기 dim바다 마들와 케랑 알 강공비 담아 디 냠렌 temper kishi.
Then continue, O child of Buddha nature, or if the dying person is a spiritual teacher, then the attendant should gently say the following words in his ear. O venerable one, I beg you not to be distracted from the cultivation of an altruistic intention. And if the dying person is a spiritual sibling, brother or sister or anyone else, the attendant should call to him or her by name and say the following words. O child of Buddha nature, that which is called death has now arrived. Therefore you should adopt an altruistic motivation and concentrate your thinking as follows. I have arrived at the time of death, so now, relying on the process of death, I will single-mindedly cultivate an altruistic intention. I will meditate on the generation of loving-kindness, compassion, and an altruistic intention to attain enlightenment. For the benefit of all sentient beings, who are as limitless as space, I must attain perfect Buddhahood. And in particular, at this moment, for the sake of all sentient beings, I must recognize the time of death as the arising of inner radiance, the Buddha body of reality, and while in that state, I must attain the supreme accomplishment of the Great Seal, and thereby act for the good of all sentient beings. If I do not achieve this accomplishment, then, recognizing the intermediate state as it is, as being the intermediate state, I will actualize the coalescent Buddha body of the Great Seal during the intermediate state, and thereby manifesting in order to instruct each in accordance with his or her needs. I will act for the benefit of all sentient beings, who are as limitless as space, without giving up the focus on cultivating an altruistic intention. In the above way, recollect the meditative experiences which you formerly developed on the basis of the oral teachings.
Kirikibu Chigimo Kyuniji Kula Dada Chuni Dapi Yesel Chani Vedo Moshe Barakishi Kirikibu Kerangita de Chirikimo Tonsangewadi Neboda Sema Kato Jiyang Kato Jiye Morayang Matrope Matropara Tong Sangewa Dopa Tika Chuni Kundo Zamboyino Kuki Shirik Di Tomba de Samna Tomba Chemchi Chirchidu Masongwara Rangrik Rangi Shiri Maga Parcele Singe Walewa Dika Ripa Sanche Kundo Sambo Yino Rangi Ripa Ngebo Chiriya Matripi Mo Tomba Dang Rangi Shiri Walere Selvara Topa Tini Ermi Mije Baratopa Dika Sanche Chiki Ko Yino Rangi Ripa Serton Ermi Yuki Pombo Chembor Sopa Tila Kichi Meba Sanche Yu Mijurwa Dika Yino De Moshepe Chogo Rangi Shiriki Mo Sangewa Di Sanjeso Moshine Rangi Ripala Rang Tawa De Sanjiki Gombala Chopa Yino.
O child of Buddha nature, listen. Pure inner radiance, reality itself, is now arising before you. Recognize it. O child of Buddha nature, this radiant essence that is now your conscious awareness is a brilliant emptiness. It is beyond substance, beyond characteristics, and beyond color, completely empty of inherent existence in any respect whatsoever. This is the female Buddha Samantabhadri, the essential nature of reality. The essence of your own conscious awareness is emptiness, yet this is not a vacuous or nihilistic emptiness. This, your very own conscious awareness, is unimpededly radiant, brilliant and vibrant. This is the male Buddha Samantabhadra. The utterly indivisible presence of these two, the essence of your own awareness, which is empty, without inherent existence with respect to any substance whatsoever, and your own conscious awareness, which is vibrant and radiantly present, is the Buddha body of reality, or Dhammakaya. This intrinsic awareness manifests in a great mass of light, and which radiance and emptiness, in which radiance and emptiness are indivisible. Is the Buddha nature of unchanging light beyond birth or death. Just to recognize this is enough. If you recognize this brilliant essence of your own conscious awareness to be the Buddha, then to gaze into intrinsic awareness is to abide in the enlightened intention of all the Buddhas. O child of Buddha nature, meditate on this, your meditational deity, Yidam. Do not be distracted. Concentrate intently on your meditational deity. Meditate that the deity appears and yet is without inherent existence, like the reflection of the moon in the water. Do not meditate on the deity as a solid corporeal form. So this is what we did until where we read yesterday. So when we read to the dead person or dying person, that's the parts that we are reading. We don't read all the book, just always these introductions.
Gerigibu Mayang Bar Dimba Tabeneji, Bardone number 2 in the Kansena Kit Kansena, Rasekini ge Bardota, Milam ge Bardota, Tingi, something ge Bardota, Chiki Bardota, Chini ge Bardota, Lucha Sibi Bardota Tuko, Gerigibu, Kulani Bardosum Junde, Chiki Bardota, Chini Bardota, Sibi Bardota, Sum Sarvale. Kasan penche cheke bardola chinye yesel saryang keke ngom nyuma dembe dire chamge jongwa yeno dani kela chinye ge bardo dang sebe bardo chinye ge bardo dang sebe bardo ni jongde dage ngoche ba nam kerang mayang bar nge dem bar kishi da tiblo.
And then we continue. O child of Buddha nature, listen very intently and without distraction. There are 6 kinds of intermediate states, namely the intermediate state of living or natural existence of this life, the intermediate state of dreams, the intermediate state of meditative stability or concentration, the intermediate state of the time of death, the intermediate state of reality, and the intermediate state of consequent rebirth. O child of Buddha nature, during and after death, you will experience 3 intermediate states. The intermediate state of the time of death or dying, the intermediate state of reality, and the intermediate state of rebirth or becoming. Of these 3, it was the intermediate state of time of death which you experienced until yesterday. Although the inner radiance of reality arose during that time, you did not recognize it. So now, as a result, you have been compelled to wander here, and now you will experience the intermediate state of reality, followed by the intermediate state of rebirth. You must therefore recognize without distraction the instructions and events which I am now going to introduce to you.
Tikendin Paro to Tote, Kuichigo Mayende, Kinlo Jungwe, Fedila, Chapata Semba, Majiji, Chapata Semba, Jejang, Dewang Name, Kurang, Korwara Chambi, Korwara Chambali, Mion, Machase, Masinji, Kinchotum, Jesu Chambarkishi.
O child of Buddha nature, that which is called death has now arrived. You are leaving this world. But in this you are not alone. This happens to everyone. Do not be attached to this life. Do not cling to this life. Even if you remain attached and clinging, you do not have the power to stay. You will only continue to roam within the cycles of existence. Therefore, do not be attached and do not cling. Think of the 3 precious jewels.
Körang sik di maje pargila sik döni yilla deni sindo sonsi di motripi neyudo.
O child of Buddha nature, however terrifying the appearances of the intermediate state of reality might be, do not forget the following words. Go forward remembering their meaning. The crucial point is that through them recognition may be attained.
Kema dala chinye bardo chadu dir kinna ngata jingna panje ne kansa ranang rikpar ngose jo bardo natri yimba sebar cha tenchen kala. Tupi dutui dir rana shutri sola jingmi cha deke ngane rang jebe tune yilla tenshin to sonsi de jitake nangwa jishar yang nge bardo jishar yang ranando ngebar ngotripi ne yube majiji.
Alas, now, as the intermediate state of reality arises before me, renouncing the merest thought of awe, terror, or fear, I will recognize all that arises to be awareness, manifesting naturally of itself. Knowing such sounds, lights, and rays to be visionary phenomena of the intermediate state, at this moment, having reached this critical point, I must not fear the assembly of peaceful and wrathful deities which manifest naturally. Go forward, reciting these words distinctly, and be mindful of their meaning. Do not forget them, for it is essential to recognize with certainty that whatever terrifying experiences may arise, they are natural manifestations of actual reality.
Regibo, Kikilita, Sementelvito, Chinyendapi, Nawa, Tala, Dambi, Sella, Serva, Ransing Tala, Yamungawa, Segitana, Mijo, Washington, Mere, Chato, Motella, Majisi, Matasi, Mangasi, Deni, Kurangi, Chiniki, Randan, Yimpi, Moshebarkishi, Uginani, Chiniki, Randatola, Diri Cheva, Tuton, Digila, Tirwatam, Diri, Nawongo, Deyang. Kurangi Chiniki Randa Yimpe, Tela Majisi, Matasi, Madansi, Mangansi, Kela Basa Yiki Lu, Sejawasi, Yuki, Duji Sataki Luni, Mepe, Tayir, Susum Kang, Jungyang, Kela Neba, Miyonde, Kela Chijumeto, Kurangi Ranando, Mosebe, Changwe, Choko, Bardo Yimbara, Separakishi.
O child of Buddha nature, when your mind and body separate, the pure luminous apparitions of reality itself will arise, subtle and clear, radiant and dazzling, naturally bright and awesome, shimmering like a mirage on a plain in summer. Do not fear them, do not be terrified, do not be awed. They are the natural luminosities of your own actual reality. Therefore recognize them as they are. From within these lights, the natural sound of reality will resound, clear and thunderous, reverberating like 1,000 simultaneous peals of thunder. This is the natural sound of your own actual reality. So do not be afraid, do not be terrified, do not be awed. The body that you now have is called a mental body. It is the product of subtle propensities and not a solid corporeal body of flesh and blood. Therefore, whatever sounds, lights, or rays may arise, they cannot harm you, for you are beyond death now. It is enough that you simply recognize the sounds and luminosities to be manifestations of your own actual reality. Know that this is the intermediate state.
Geregibo, Detara, Randando, Momasena, Miyurdo, Omduk, Chitara, Checha, Tati, Tamba, Didam, Machena, Kiki, Jigso. De danso, dergi chago, dambi nidi masena, traye terso ngomi sebe, korora chamo.
O child of Buddha nature, if you do not now recognize these phenomena to be natural manifestations, whatever meditative practices you may have undertaken whilst in the human world, if you have not previously encountered this present instruction, you will fear the light, you will be awed by the sound, and you will be terrified by the rays. If you do not now understand this essential point of the teaching, you will not recognize the sounds, the lights, and the rays, and you will continue to roam within the cycles of existence.
Kirekibu, Sak Chetan Shi Bardo Jenye Trote, Jele Samba Danga, Tijong Yambi, Nangwa Chungwe, Kige Bardo, Mose Parakishi, Diese Korwi, Rolone, Nangwa Tamje, Yudan Guru Charo, Namka Tamje, Yu Kato Tingara Charo, Di Yuchok, Tile, Delvi Singhamne, Somdende, Nambara Nade, Kodo Karbo, Sengi Tilla Shupa, Chana Kola, Tibje Namba, Yum Nampi Inchoma, da Shele Jarne, Rana Sardo Wongo, Nambar, Shepi Pombo, Neso Tape, Yu Tinga, Chuki Ingi Yeshe, Sella Tamba, Tala Serva Shik, Nambar, Nande Yabimki Tokane, Kyorangi Dundo, Migi Mudeba Samdo, Sunni Wongo, Dedan, Yamda Lai, Karbo, Tameba Shicha, Dundo, Zonshi, Zong Shifu Sugne, Sunni Wongo, Diedeso, Kyu, Lengingi Wangi, Yu, Tinka, Tadan Tempa, Chuki, Ingi, Yeshe, Tela, Chikatan Tabakene, Dressing, Sai, Karbo, Tambe, Della, Kyu, Kavi, Dushikene, Wangi, Desana, Kyu, Tinka, Sella, Serva, Danla, Tak, Chewa, Chogi, Yeshi, Serva, Della, Mangashi, Matasi, Deshinshi, Yudir, Chuki, Ingi, Yeshi, Xie Jawa Yingi, Dela, Deba, Meba, Dundong Gishi. Dila Tuka, de Sanjinabana, de Kutua. Dire.
Dinse, Karbutumar.
Oh, dear. Kudaka. Thinking Tila Chopa, Chana Kolo, Tijina.
So it continues, O child of Buddha nature, should you have moved on without recognition after having been unconscious for up to 3.5 days, you will awaken from unconsciousness and wonder, what has happened to me? So, recognize this to be the intermediate state. At this time, the aspects of the cycles of existence are reversed into their own true nature, and all phenomena are arising as lights and Buddha bodies. On the first day of the intermediate state of reality, all space will arise as a blue light. At this time, from the central Buddha field called pervasive seminal point, the transcendent Lord Vairochana will dawn before you. His body white in color, seated on a lion throne, holding in his right hand an 8-spoked wheel, and embraced by his consort Akasha Datishvari, a blue luminosity radiant and clear, bright and dazzling, indicative of the pristine cognition of reality's expanse, or the primary wisdom of Dharmadhatu, which is the natural purity of your aggregate of consciousness, will emanate from the heart of Vairochana and his consort, and it will shine piercingly before you at the level of your heart with such brilliance that your eyes cannot bear it. Together with this, a dull white light, indicative of the realm of the gods, will also dawn directly before you and touch your heart. At this time, under the sway of negative past actions, you will wish to flee in fear and terror from the bright blue light, which is the pristine cognition of reality's expanse, and you will come to perceive the dull white light of the god realms with delight. At this moment, do not be awed by the blue luminosity, which is radiant and dazzling, clear and very bright. This is the supreme inner radiance of pristine cognition. Do not be terrified. This is the light ray of the Tathagata, which is called the pristine cognition of reality's expanse. Have confidence in it. Be drawn to it with longing devotion. Pray with devotion thinking.
Di kachi so ngana to ti sema sagwe dire barte ka so ngara so la ta da ching ting to ni tinga sa yong de dan nyam do ngara se ge sei yu ka bo ta me pa se yong ge re se nyam do to ko ram ni nyam de yong ge re se yong yu ka so ngara so ge ti la de ni ti to de ge wang ge de ni tinga de la ngara se ge ting yu dan de ba de ngara se ge ta Teni yue me badin ngana ti kawa ki gere, o ti notri yore, ti martemla sawe ki reta. Ate temla sawo ki tonga.
So, what the main point here, what we really need to keep and put in our mind is that when we are in the Bardo of reality, then this blue, dazzling, bright blue light will shine, and together, which is the light of Vairochana, and then together with it will the white, more dull light of the God realms will shine. They're coming together, and at that time, due to our karmic propensities, we will fear the blue dazzling light and will be attracted to the white light of the gods. So we need to now put into our mind and understand this is a mistake. Don't be attracted to the white light. Have devotion to the blue light. This we need to keep now already in mind. Bardo So the most important thing is to keep this in mind, that when we are in the Bardo, then that's why we need to study the Bardo now, because it shows us the wrong path that we could take, which will cause us to be reborn in samsara again. So this we need to keep in our mind. If we fail to keep this in our mind, even so, if when we die and we have this mental body, our consciousness will be extremely clear and sharp. Due to the karmic imprints or propensities, then we will fear the blue light of primary wisdom of Dharmadhatu and will be attracted to the wrong path that will lead again to us to be born in samsara. So therefore it's important to keep this in mind. So pray with devotion, thinking, this is the light ray of the transcendent Lord Vairochana's compassion. I take refuge in it. For this, in reality, is the transcendent Lord Vairochana and his consort come to escort you on the dangerous pathway of the intermediate state. This is the light ray of Vairochana's compassion. Therefore, do not delight in the dull white light of the God realms. Do not be attached to it. Do not cling to it. This dull white light is the inviting path created by your own habitual tendencies for deep delusion, which you yourself have generated. So here there are pictures in the book of Vairochana and the Buddha families, but they're not exactly like, for example, here you can see, maybe from the distance, you can look at it later also, there's this white Vairochana with consort, Tatishvari, but in this picture he holds a vajra and a bell, whereas in the description he holds a dharma wheel, and I don't know what. So it is good to recognize, to know the deities, to look at them and familiarize yourself with them, as when they appear to you in the Bardo, then you will also be able to recognize them. So do not, if you become attached to it, to the white light, you will roam within the God realms and be drawn into the cycles of existence of the 6 classes of beings. This dull light is an obstruction, blocking the path to liberation. Do not look at it. Be devoted to the bright blue light. Focus intently on the transcendent Lord Vairochana and repeat after me the following aspirational prayer.
tabe number nande yabim gi tokara jayedo temni ichok tobo gi be singhamdo lonje to bekur lonje to beso ta sangye bara churo.
Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated delusion, may the transcendent Lord Vairochana draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of reality's expanse. May the Supreme Consort, Akasha Datishwari, support me from behind, and thus encircled may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. By making this aspirational prayer with fervent devotion, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of Vairochana and his consort, and you will attain Buddhahood as the Buddha body of perfect resource in the central Buddha field of the dense array.
yang ge de mo zhe chang xie dang dang di zhi ki zhen gi yu dang ze re la zhang ni zhe de mian lam dab chang ma zhu ne shak ni ba la dur je de bi la so da ni lu le ni ni gi su wa la wang de yang mo zhe ba ni lo ji.
So then next is like explanation. It says, if however even after receiving this introduction as the result of negative obscuration and aversion, the deceased are nonetheless awed by the lights and rays and turn away, and even if after repeating the aspirational prayer they remain bewildered, then on the second day Vajrasattva's assembly of deities will come to escort them, and at that same time the negative past actions which are conducive to a rebirth in the hell realm will also emerge. Again, calling the deceased by name, the introduction should be given with the following words. So, if due to our practice, meditation practice, for example, practice of generation stage or completion stage practice, we have good familiarity, then we will be able to obtain liberation on the first day of this Bardo without having to fall into the further Bardo. And if we fail to obtain liberation at that first day, then in the second day, Vajrasattva will manifest. So then again the introduction.
세계의 민니벨라 되게도 계리기보 마양바라년지 사그니발라 중와 추 남바르다베 예가고 차로 대대도 사승님바라가 위생감 팅가네 좀 된데 들제삼바 미제보 고도 팅가 샤찬나 들제생가바 남바 람보지 된라주보 유모산제 점마다 셀레전네 샤두 오모 저저 장제된바 세인닝보 당 점바 장저 템바 사이닝보다 자마 미티 니라 세마 라세마다 피피마니게 코르네 사지게 꾸뚝도 차르디 오모.
O child of Buddha nature, listen without distraction. On the second day of the purity of the entire element, on the second day, the purity of the entire element, water will arise in the form of a white light. At that time, from the eastern Buddha field of manifest joy, the transcendent Lord Akshobhya Vajrasattva will dawn before you. His body blue in color, holding in his right hand a five-pronged Vajra, seated on an elephant throne and embraced by his consort Buddha Lochana. They are encircled by two male bodhisattvas, Ksitigarbha and Maitreya, and two female bodhisattvas, Lasya and Pushpa. Thus, 6 Buddha bodies will be shining before you from within a space of rainbow light.
Can you also show?
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Duki Pomboni Sotape, Carbo Melon Tabi, Shekarla Serva, Sella Tambashik, Dorjetamba, Yayumgi Togani, Kurangi, Tindo, Miki Tam, Mizeba Sando, Suni Wongo. Dedam, Nyamdo, Nyelvi, Yu, Duka, Tameba Shikchang, Tindo Yeshiki, Yudam, Shimmer, Suni Wongo, Dietus, Ku, Shedangi Wangi, Yu Carport, Tagdan Dembadella, Chipatang, Tapa, Kene, Dressing, Nyelvi, Duka. Tamme della Gawa, Gavi Dushi, Kenya Wongi, Diana Q, Yukarpo, Tala Serva, Sella, Tamba della Majipa, Yeshiso, Moshe Barakishi.
A brilliant white light indicative of the mirror-like pristine cognition or primal awareness, primal wisdom, which is the natural purity of the aggregate of form, white and dazzling, radiant and clear, will emanate from the heart of Vajrasattva and his consort, and it will shine piercingly before you at the level of your heart with such brilliance that your eyes cannot bear it. Together with this light of pristine cognition, a dull, smoky light indicative of the hell realms will also dawn before you and touch your heart. At that time, under the sway of aversion, you will wish to turn away in fear and terror from the bright white light and come to perceive the dull, smoky light of the hell realms with delight. At that moment, you should fearlessly recognize the white light, white and dazzling, radiant and clear, to be pristine cognition. Have confidence in it. Be drawn to it with loving devotion. Pray with devotion, thinking.
Somnende Durjetamba, Tuji Yudrino, Chapter Chu Nyamba, Mebakila, Solwa Toti, Tini, Somnende Durjetambi, K, Bardo Chikala, Suwa La, Onwaino. Durjetambi, Tuji Yudriki, Chachu Yimbe, Mebakishi, Yelvi Duka, Tame de la Gawara Majiji, K, De Kuki Shetan Trapesa, Tiki, Sunmi Lamino, De La Chana, K, Yelvi Niso Songde, Dungyen, Ken Mizubi. Damdo City, Tembi, Dumi Jonte, De Tarbi, Lam Kapi, Bashi Yimbe, De la Miki Matawa, Sedan Ponsi, De la Machashi, Masinchi, Yu Karpo, Sella Serva, De la Mibakila, Somdende, Turji Sambala, Tumba Trapo, De la Melam Diki Tuji.
This is the light ray of the transcendent Lord Vajrasattva's compassion. I take refuge in it. This in reality is Vajrasattva and his consort come to escort you on the dangerous pathway of the intermediate state. This is the light ray hook of Vajrasattva's compassion. Be devoted to it. Do not delight in the dull, smoky light of the hell realms. This dull light is the inviting path of the negative obscurations created by your own deep aversion, which you yourself have generated. If you become attached to it, you will fall into the realms of hell, sinking into a swamp of unbearable suffering, from which there will be no immediate opportunity for escape. This dull light is an obstacle blocking the path to liberation. Do not look at it. Abandon your aversion. Do not be attached to it. Do not cling to it. Be devoted to the white light, radiant and dazzling. Focus intently on the transcendent Lord Vajrasattva and recite the following aspirational prayer. So when we talk about these lights, now the white light and the hell realms light, which light did you see in your mind? Will you get confused? Do you think you will confuse the two lights? So this is really important to remember, which are the two lights that will shine. In this case, the white and the gray, dull gray light, smoke-colored light. So if you cannot remember, it's good to write it down and to remind yourself, so that in the Bardo then you will be able to remember this as well.
말아 되긴다. 따다 말아 뒤도 요래 시기 말해대. 통당을 해봐. 시기 말해 말아서 밑덕과 되긴 말해봐.
We think, I still have time to study this, yeah, because I will not die, not yet. Yeah. But we don't know, yeah, the birthdays can come any moment.
따다가 선생님을 로충처래. 나한테 로급주 개축구주 대결해. 한번 당겨봐. 뒤에 하고게 말해봐.
We think, I'm still young, I probably will live until 80, 90 years, so I still have many years to go, time for this, but we don't know.
다들 소설의 로준 제시한 또 소설 펜벌에.
If we study it right now, then it will benefit ourselves.
그게 세단답고 크로라 참되게 메롱이 세르비오 열람나 좀된 dorje sembe lam나도 염자 산제점이 점리죠. 바트지 비탄데 들어도 양도도 비단제 서로죠. 시미게 잡에 면람되게 답에 좀된데 dorje 때문에 또그 자유도 때문에 사실 멤버가 신도 런지도 비고로 상계 벌어주로.
Oh, as I roam in the cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated aversion, may the transcendent Lord Vajrasattva draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the mirror-like pristine cognition. May the Supreme Consort Buddhalochana support me from behind, and thus encircled may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. By making this aspirational prayer with fervent devotion, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of the transcendent Lord Vajrasattva, and you will attain Buddhahood as the Buddha body of perfect resource in the Eastern Buddha field of manifest joy. And then again is some instruction coming.
양 삭솜바라 좀 된데 렌진 종데 게 사소당 미유 열람니게 소와라원데 양 모제바니 다서 니발람마 좀 마트마 양 삭솜발라 담마르마 로기도.
So it says, yet even after being introduced in this way, there are some individuals who will turn away in fear from the light ray hook of compassion, being gripped by pride and powerful negative obscuration. So it is that on the third day the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava's assembly of deities will come to escort the deceased, and simultaneously the light path indicative of the human realm will emerge. So if we don't get it on the second day, then we have to try on the third day.
디디도 소초 빠단데 비신감 세번이 좀는데 렌진 중에 고도 세번 찬나 노르보 림보체 넘버 따초기 된라 중에 용초 마마기다 셀레잖아 라나 철도 공고 장초템비 남기 닝보다 꼰도 담보닐라 세마 말레마다 도페만 얘기 거니 자당 결당 유기론데 산지기 고쪽도 철니 공고 소르비 공부 입소다 봐 유에서 봐 냠반 얘기 예시 세르라 세와 틸레 티칭게 젬바 셀라 담바 미기 미드바식 렌젠존데 야뷴 투가니 큐랑게 딘도 닝게 테가르 미게 담미르바 삼도 송니오모 대단량도 미 유행에 봐 장미 직장 예시기 유담 심말 큐랑게 닝가르 송니오모 디에디소 큐랑 아저게 왕기 유에서 봐 장당 젠델라 직자 깨네 드레수 원싱 미 유행에 봐 장미델라 큐 가와다 착템 깨네 왕기 대삼나 큐 유에서 봐 셀라 담바 장라 테르와 델라 마직버 예시소 모셰버 기시.
Again, calling the deceased by name, the introduction should be given with the following words. O child of Buddha nature, listen without distraction. On the third day, the purity of the entire element earth will arise in the form of a yellow light. At this time, from the yellow thousand Buddha field of the glorious, the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava will dawn before you. His body yellow in color, holding in his right hand a jewel, seated on a horse throne and embraced by his supreme consort Mamaki. They are encircled by two male bodhisattvas, Akashagarbha and Samantabhadra, and two female bodhisattvas, Malya and Dupa. Thus, 6 Buddha bodies will be shining before you from within a space of rainbow light. A yellow light indicative of the pristine cognition of sameness, or the primary wisdom of equality, which is the natural purity of the aggregate of feeling, yellow and dazzling, adorned by greater and lesser bindus, similar points of light, radiant, clear, and unbearable to the eyes, will emanate from the heart of Ratnasambhava and his consort, and will shine piercingly before you at the level of your heart, with such brilliance that your eyes cannot bear it. Together with the light of pristine cognition, a dull blue light, indicative of the human realm, will also dawn before you and touch your heart. At that time, under the sway of pride, you will wish to turn away in fear and terror from the bright yellow light, and you will come to delight in the dull blue light of the human realm and feel attachment towards it. At that moment, abandon your fear of the yellow light and recognize it as pristine cognition, yellow and dazzling, radiant and clear.
Di tokto rikpa charmi ki ngana fede shokchi di yana dela deba tang meba tondong kishi kyorangi rikpi rangdang so ngoshe nani megi maji mala matabchang kodang yudir tam je kyorangda ilmi to timne sangye bar churu.
Let your awareness relax and abide directly within it, in a state of non-activity. Again and again, have confidence in it. Be drawn to it with longing devotion. If you recognize it as the natural luminosity of your own awareness, even though you may feel no devotion towards it and have no recited aspirational prayer, all the Buddha bodies and light rays will dissolve inseparably into you and you will attain Buddhahood.
Rangi rikpi rangdang so ngoma she nani chomden de rinjin chongdi ki tuji yuedir yinna chaso chewu nyambi meba ki la solwa topche teni chomden de rinjin chongdi ki tuji yuedir chacho yinbe meba ki she mi yue ngenpa chambi de la kawara maji chi de kyuki maji rabe sabi pasha ki sunbi yue lam yinno de la chana mi neso tungne kega na chi tungir nyonshin korbi nene tarbi yu mi jongde tarbi lam kapi parche yinbe migi matawar ngajil ponshi bakcha ponshi dela machashi mashinchi yue terpo serla serwa dela meba gila chomden de rinchi chonden la dunpa sechu to dela melam de gito topchi.
If you are unable to recognize this radiance as being the natural luminosity of your own awareness, then pray with devotional thinking. This is the light ray of the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava's compassion. I take refuge in it. This, in reality, is the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava, come to escort you on the fearsome, dangerous pathway of the intermediate state. This is the light ray hook of Ratnasambhava's compassion. Be devoted to it. Do not delight in the dull blue light of the human realm. This dull light is the inviting path created by your own habitual tendencies for deep-seated pride, which you yourself have generated. If you become attached to it, you will tumble down into the human realm and you will experience the sufferings of birth, old age, sickness and death. And there will be no immediate opportunity to escape from the swamp of cyclic existence. This dull light is an obstacle blocking the path to liberation. Do not look at it. Abandon pride. Abandon your habitual tendencies. Do not be attached to the dull blue light. Do not cling to it. Be devoted to the yellow light, golden and dazzling. Focus intently and single-mindedly on the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava and recite the following aspirational prayer.
ma ngaje trape korora chambe fe nyamni she fe yu lamla chomde renji chomde lamla to yobcho mama ki chamne chor parte chi pe chande te to yanda to pe sanche taro so te ke mege trape merlan tape chomne de renji chomde yab ki to kara jaye do temya so cho patan de me singham to lonje to pe kor sangye bara choro.
Oh, as a Roman cyclic existence driven by deep-seated pride, may the transcendent Lord Ramnasambhava draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of sameness. May the Supreme Consort Mamaki support me from behind, and thus encircled may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. By making this aspiration and prayer with fervent devotion, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava, and you will attain Buddhahood as the Buddha body of perfect resource, or the Sambhogakaya, in the southern Buddha field of the glorious. So this is Ratnasambhava, this one, the yellow one.
Nindena marloji detara ngotepe wambo chitar senchang tolwar tesome do yang detar lenmonto ngotecha miti poche la sopa ta tamsi nyamba la sope kelsingi rigla dadung yang ngo mitripi rigonte dechata ditripi jene dechata ditripi jene traye la chikte tripe yang sak sipala chomdende namwa taye ke laso decha semna ditripi yidaki yue lam nisu niki suwa lawante yang ngotepa ni.
So then again in instruction, there is no doubt that if the deceased are receptive to this introduction, they will attain liberation, however weak their individual ability may be. Yet, even after being given this introduction, many times there are some whose positive opportunities have been exhausted by, for example, their great negativity, or through not having maintained their commitments, samayas, and so forth, who even now will not have accepted this introduction. These individuals will have turned away in fear and of both the sounds and the luminosities, and become agitated by desire and negative obscuration. So it is that on the fourth day, the transcendent Lord Amitabha's assembly of deities will come to escort them, and at the same time, the light path indicative of the realm of the anguished spirits, which is generated by desire and miserliness, will emerge. Again, calling the deceased by name, the introduction should be given with the following words.
Yang sedeki mingne bela deki to tadi yang motre ke rikibu mayang baranyenji shao shibala chungwa mi nambar taki ye marbo charo di so nupcha dewa jingi shingham marbo ni chomdende nangwa tayi kutu marbo chana pema namba pemi tenla shukwa yumchok ge karmo ta shele charne rangla chardo wongo chancho semba chende dikdang jambir nila tema gerge mata aloke nyeke korne chayu ge lonne sanji ki kutuk to chane wongo doshiki fongpo niso tapa yue marpo sosor tope yeshi marla serwa tile ta titinge trepa sela tampa chala serwa chik nangwa tayi yawyumgi togane kyorangi nyingar tekar migi mireba samdo songye wongo dela majishi dedang nyamdo yedaki yue serwa chameba shikchang yeshiki yuedang shimbara chardo wongwe dela migawra gishi chasen pongshi diyedu so decha trape wangi tu yue marpo chadang chen dela chapa kene dreso chongsing dreso wangsing yedaki yue serwa chambe dela kyo gawadang chasen kene wangi desana kyo yue marpo chala serwa sela tamba dela maji par yeshi so ngoshe para gishi.
O child of Buddha nature, listen without distraction. On the fourth day, the purity of the element fire will arise in the form of a red light. At that time, from the red western Buddha field of the blissful Sukhavati, the transcendent Lord of Amitabha will dawn before you, his body red in color, holding in his right hand a lotus flower, seated on a peacock throne and embraced by the supreme consort Pandara Vasini. They are encircled by two male bodhisattvas, Avalokiteshvara and Manjushri, and two female bodhisattvas, Gita and Aloka. Thus, 6 Buddha bodies will be shining before you from within a space of rainbow light. A red light indicative of the pristine cognition of discernment, which is the natural purity of the aggregate of perceptions, red and dazzling, adorned by greater and lesser seminal points or bindus, radiant and clear, bright and dazzling, will emanate from the heart of Amitabha and his consort, and will shine piercingly before you at the level of your heart, with such brilliance that your eyes cannot bear it. Do not be afraid. Together with the light of pristine cognition, a dull yellow light, indicative of the realm of anguished spirits, will also dawn before you and touch your heart. Do not delight in the dull yellow light. Do not become attached to it, and do not cling to it. At this time, under the sway of deep desire, you will wish to turn away in terror from the bright red light, and you will come to delight in the dull yellow light of the anguished spirits, the pretas, and feel attachment towards it.
이 독토리 과자미 경험을 lela 수치 양나데라 데바다 메바 동동기시 교랑기 란다도 모시니 미기 마지 만나 마답장 고당 예들 탐지 계란다 일미도 팀니 상계버려 주로.
At this moment, abandon your fear and recognize the red light, bright and dazzling, radiant and clear, to be pristine cognition, primal wisdom. Let your awareness relax and abide directly within it, resting in a state of non-activity. Have confidence in the radiant red luminosity. Be drawn to it with longing devotion. If you recognize this radiance as the natural luminosity of your own awareness, even though you may feel no devotion towards it and have not recited the aspirational prayer, all the Buddha bodies and light rays will dissolve inseparably into you, and you will attain Buddhahood.
데타르 마시나 좀내내 나와 타에게 투지 외들이나 접서지고 몇번 냠비 메기 길라 또는 톱지 얘네 좀된데 나와 타에게 투지 자주 외들이나 몇번 계시 마드시 죄장 쾌란다 메드라브라 몽어 마지시 이다기 유에서 바tam메데라 차바라 마지시 퀴기 대차적에 사비 바차기 스미 람 유인나 스미 유람미노 데라차나 그 이다기 네소송니 태공기 동에서 셀라 밑바 뇽데 탈람 카피 바치임베 데라 마차파 마 박차 본시 마신지 유에마르바 타라 유에마르바 셀라 서바 데라 메바기시 좀된데 나와타이 야비움라 dim바 세치도 데라 멜람 데게도 톱지.
If you are not able to recognize the radiance in this way, then pray with devotion, thinking, this is the light ray of the transcendent Lord Amitabha's compassion. I take refuge in it. This truly is the light ray hook of the transcendent Lord Amitabha's compassion. Be devoted to it. Do not turn away. Should you turn away, the luminosity will accompany you inseparably. Do not be afraid. Do not be attached to the dull yellow light of the anguished spirits. This is the inviting path created by your own habitual tendencies for deep-seated desire, which you yourself have generated. If you become attached to this dull light, you will fall into the realm of the anguished spirits, and you will experience unbearable sufferings of hunger and thirst. This dull light is an obstacle blocking the path to liberation. Do not be attached to it. Abandon your attachment. Do not cling to it. Be devoted to the red light, which is radiant and dazzling, and focus intently and single-mindedly on the transcendent Lord Amitabha and his consort, and recite the following aspirational prayer.
게마 대차탑에 프로그라 참비세 소르데 예세셀웨 요람나 좀내 나와타 요람나로 요적게 거는 뭐 잠내죠. 버데 지비 탄레드도 양다서 산제 사로스 디레미 대기도 미게 잡에 만남 답에 좀내내 나와타에 예밤이 야병기 토그라 자유도 팀는 높체다와 징계 생각도 나주도 백으로 상계바라주로.
Oh, as a Roman cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated desire, may the transcendent Lord Amitabha draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of discernment. May the Supreme Consort Pandravasini support me from behind, and thus may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. By making this aspirational prayer with fervent devotion, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of the transcendent Lord Amitabha and his consort, and you will attain Buddhahood as the Buddha body of perfect resource or Sambhogakaya in the Western Buddha field of the blissful Sukhavati. And again, instruction.
Bakcha mabang bar chado da lengingi wangi cha yu la ngata keke tuji yudri ki chachu mabin bar sangapi bardo marla chamde diye chomden de dunye jubi laso ki tuji yudri da jete suwa la chende nyumomba chado le jubi lama yingi yu lamgi chang suwa la wongo diye se yang moche bani.
Although it is impossible not to be liberated by the successful recognition of this introduction, there are nonetheless those who will be unable to give up their propensities due to habituation over long periods of time, even after receiving such an introduction. Under the sway of envy and negative past actions, they will become fearful and overawed by the sounds and luminosities. Failing to be caught by the light ray hook of compassion, they roam downwards into the fifth day. So it is that on the fifth day, the transcendent Lord Amoghasiddhi's assembly of deities, resplendent with the light rays of compassion, will come to escort them, and at the same time, the light path indicative of the realm of the antigods, which is generated by the dissonant mental state of envy, will emerge invitingly.
Di se yang mo trepani se de gi mi ni bella de ki do ke re gi bo ma yang bara ni ji sa nga pa la chungwa long number da be ye chang go cha ro di ju so chang so de ra so be sing gam chang go ni chom ne de fan ji de ye ju pa so ko ko do chang go chan da de ji cha jam nam ba ka ding sang sang gi til la shu pa yum dam de zol ma ta se le jan ne rang la char do wong mo tem ba chan na de ji da ti pa number Salwani, Sema, Gendema da Nirtema Niki Korne, Chada Yuki Lone, Sanji Ki Kutuk to Charni.
Again, calling the deceased by name, the introduction should now be given with the following words. O child of Buddha nature, listen without distraction. On the fifth day, the purity of the entire wind element will arise in the form of a green light. At that time, from the green northern Buddha field called Matrix of Enlightened Activities, Karma Prasiddhi, the transcendent Lord Buddha Amoghasiddhi, with his retinue, will dawn before you, his body green in color, holding in his right hand a crossed vajra, seated on a Chiwaka bird throne, and embraced by the Supreme Consort Samayadhara. These two are encircled by two male bodhisattvas, Vajrapani and Nivarana Viskambim, and two female bodhisattvas, Ganda and Nirti. Thus, 6 Buddha bodies will be shining before you from within the space of rainbow light.
Dujigi Pombo Niso da Pacha, Yu Chango Chawa Trupe Yeshe Changla Serva, Sella Tamba, Chala Nyam Hawa, Tile Da Tichengi Trepa Sik, Duyin Trupa, Yayambi Togane, Kyorangi Ningi, Tekarami, Tama Depa Samdo Tuni Wongo, De Lama Chipara, Kyorangi Rang Ripi, Yeshigi Selle Ransel Yimbe, Chadang Niring Medba, Tanyum, Jarme Chimbe Mando Sochi, Di Namto Sama Yingi, Yu Marbo, Chatuki, Julu Trupa, Tambe Basisa, Yeshiki, Yuderdan Lejo to Kyola Chardo Wongo, De La Chana, Yela Chadame, Tanyum to Gishi, Tanyamson Gomshi, Lomebaina, Dela, Gawar Majeji, Die de Soke, Tago, Die de Soke, Tado, Tapi Wangi, Yu Jangu, Tala, Terwa, Dela, Trini, Driso Wansi, Sama Yingi, Yu Marbo, Tambe Dela, Kawata, Chasam Kini Wangi, Die Sana, Yu Jangu, Tala, Terwa, Dela Tamba, Dela Majipa, Yeshiki, Yeshiso Moshe Barakishi.
A green light indicative of the pristine cognition of accomplishment, which is the natural purity of the aggregate of motivational tendencies, green and dazzling, radiant and clear, bright and awesome, adorned by greater and lesser seminal points, will emanate from the heart of Amoga city and its consort, and it will shine piercingly before you at the level of your heart, with such brilliance that your eyes cannot bear it. Do not be afraid. This is the natural expressive power of your own awareness. Rest in a state of great equanimity, transcending activity, free from the dichotomies of attachment and aversion, based on your feelings of nearness and distance, together with the light of pristine cognition, a dull red light, indicative of the realm of the antigods, or semigods, and formed by envy, will also dawn before you and touch your heart. Cultivate an equanimity towards this dull light, which is free from attachment or aversion. Even if your mental capacity is diminished, at least do not delight in it. At this time, under the sway of deep envy, you will wish to turn away in terror from the bright and dazzling green light, green luminosity, and you will come to feel delight and attachment with the dull red light of the demigods. At this moment, abandon your fear and recognize the green luminosity, bright and dazzling, radiant and clear, to be pristine cognition.
Di tokto rikwacha melodi ki ngando tela sochi yana chomden de tyin rupi tuji yudri yino chapso chiu nyambi myugyu ki la solwa topchi dini chomden de tyin rupi tuji chacho yudri chawa rupi yeshi shi chawa yinbe de la meba ki shi madri shi drichang kyurang dantan meto ongo de la maji shi lama yingi yu marpo chame de la chapar maji chi dini kyugi chado chapi sapi leki mimbi Leki Sunmi Lami no de la Chanani Kyo Hamingi Nesu Tungwe Tapsiki Tunge de la Medba Nyongde Tarlam Kapi Parche Yimpe de la Machapar Bakcha Ponshi Mashinchi Kyo Jangu Sella Serva de la Mepa Kila Chomde de Yentroba Yagyum La Jumba Techitu de la Melam Tikitu Topchi.
Let your awareness relax and abide directly within it, resting in a state of non-activity. Pray with devotion, thinking, this is the light ray of the transcendent Lord Amoga City's compassion. I take refuge in it. This, in reality, is the light ray hook of the transcendent Lord Amoga City's compassion, which is known as the pristine cognition of accomplishment. Be devoted to it. Do not turn away. Even if you do turn away, the luminosity will accompany you inseparably. So do not be afraid. Do not be attached to the dull red light of the antigods. This is the inviting pause of your past actions, which you yourself have engaged in, whilst motivated by deep envy. If you become attached to this dull light, you will fall into the realms of the demigods and experience the unbearable suffering of unrelenting conflict and quarreling. This dull light is an obstacle blocking the path to liberation. Do not be attached to it. Give up your yearning. Do not cling to it. Be devoted to the green light, which is radiant and dazzling, and focus intently and single-mindedly on the transcendent Lord Amoga City and its consort, and recite the following aspirational prayer.
Kema chado chape krora chambe chato yese selve yelamla chomje dyen chape lamna to Yumcho tamde drome chamde cha bardo jipi chonde dedo yanda to be saje taro cho tetara megu dape monlam tape chomdende dyen choba yabyum gi togar jayu do temne chancho lera to be singam to lonchi to be kur sange bara churu.
Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated envy, may the transcendent Lord Amoga City draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of accomplishment. May the Supreme Consort Samayatara support me from behind, and thus may I be rescued from a fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. By making this aspiration and prayer with fervent devotion, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of the transcendent Lord Amoga City and his consort, and you will attain Buddhahood as the Buddha body of perfect resource in the northern Buddha field called Matrix of Enlightened Activities. Okay, let's have a break.
Lama Tsewang. Ditara rimba mando ngotrebe leto chitara senchang chigla ngue madenchan chigla ngotrete midol mithito yang detar len mando ngotrechang pakcha ten chala tok yunu ringe dana yeshe ngara dimipi wangi ngotrechang pakcha ngempe chigla chite tuji yodergi chachu madenpe yodang derla ngata kenya marla korwe Dene Sakman Trupala, Ringa Yabim Kordam, Chepa, Duchila, Chatu, Chadni, Onte, Diese, Ritugi, Yu Duchang, Duchitu, Chadne, Ongo, Onte.
Again, there's instruction. By giving this introduction repeatedly in this way, however weak the positive residue of a deceased individual's past actions might be, he or she will have the opportunity to attain recognition at one point or another. As recognition occurs at any point, it will be impossible for liberation not to be achieved. However, owing to a long association with myriad habitual tendencies and an unfamiliarity with pure vision and pristine cognition, even after being introduced repeatedly in this way, there are some who are nevertheless led backwards by negative propensities, despite this setting face to face having been given. Failing to be gripped by the light ray hook of compassion, they will be overcome by awe and terror upon the rising of the lights and rays and continue to wander downwards. Thereupon, on the sixth day, the male and female deities of the 5 enlightened families, together with their retinues, will arise simultaneously, and at that very moment the 6 dull lights, indicative of the 6 classes of living beings, will also arise simultaneously. Therefore, calling the deceased by name, the introduction should be given with the following words.
Kirang Kasan Penchi, Ringa Sose, Nawa, Sarne, Motrechang, Ke, Bakchang, Bewange, Dela, Tang, Andra Kebe, Da Penchi to Tiri, Luba Yino, Kuki, Kondo Ringi, Yeshiki, Randang, Denam, Rangdan, Mosena, Ringa Sose, Kula, Jayu to Tim, Lonchu so Pikuru, Sangi Ju Yimbala, Kuki, Moma Shepe, Setpar, Moma Shebar, Tabardu, Dire Chamba Yino.
O child of Buddha nature, listen without distraction. Until yesterday, the visions of the 5 individual enlightened families arose before you. Despite this, even though the introduction was given, you experienced awe and terror, a response generated by your habitual tendencies. Consequently, you have remained in your present state until now. If you had previously recognized one of the natural luminosity of the pristine cognitions of the 5 enlightened families as being a natural manifestation of actual reality, he would have dissolved into rainbow light at the heart of one of these Buddha bodies of the 5 respective enlightened families and attained Buddhahood in the Buddha body of perfect resource.
Dani Mayangpara Tushi, Dani Ringa Yondogi Nangwada, Yeshi Shujurgi Nangwa Si Jawaki, Sowalo Hongo, Deki Moshepa Kishi, Kirikipu, Chungwashi, Nambara Tapi, Yu Kato Si, Chado Hongo, Yeshi, Dieduso Ucho, Tili Delwi, Shingamni, Sanjit Nambara Nande, Yab Yum, Gong Tardo, Sharni Hongo. 사초 년바라가의 신감네 산지 돌제 삼바 야비움다 코당 제바 샤도 소초 발단 제비 신감네 산지 린진 중대 야비움 코당 제바 샤도 노초 페마 테파 대화진게 신감네 산지 나와대 야비움 코당 제바 샤도 옹어 장초내라 소비 신감네 산지 뒤에 또 야비움 코당 제바 자유계론의 켤라다다 차르도 차로.
Yet, since we have been unable to recognize these experiences as being natural manifestations, we have wandered here. Therefore, listen now without distraction. The vision of the entire peaceful assembly of the 5 enlightened families, together with that which is called the vision of the 4 pristine cognitions combined, will now come to invite you. Recognize this, O child of Buddha nature. At this time, the 4 colored lights, which are the pure forms of the 4 elements, will dawn before you, and simultaneously the Buddha Vairochana and his consort will arise, as before, from the central Buddha field of the pervasive seminal point or bindus. At that same moment, the Buddha Vajrasattva and his consort, surrounded by their retinue, will arise from the eastern Buddha field of manifest joy. The Buddha Ratnasambhava and his consort, together with their retinue, will arise from the southern Buddha field of the glorious. The Buddha Amitabha and his consort, together with their retinue, will arise from the western Buddha field of the blissful. And the Buddha Amoghasiddhi and his consort, together with their retinue, will now arise before you from the northern Buddha field called Matrix of Enlightened Activity. All are rising together out of a space of rainbow light.
게리기보 링아 야비움 된남기 치루도 고 초와 남바라 절와다 신지 셰보다 단된 절보다 뒤뒤 킬와다 고마 짝조마다 사과마다 짜로마다 줄보마다 레이 투바 원보 자젠다 라마 얘기 투바 타당리다 미 투바 사자 땡게다 조성기 투바 땡게라 된다 예다기 투바 가버마다 일베 투바 치기 절보다 좀된데 투바 투자 차도 옹어.
O child of Buddha nature, encircling these male and female deities of the 5 enlightened families, the male gatekeepers, Trailokyal, Vichaya, Yamantaka, Hayagriva Vacha, and Amrita Kundalini will also arise, together with the female gatekeepers, Ankusha, Pasa, Spota, and Ganta. In addition to the 6 emanational sages or munis, who are transcendent lords, will also appear before you. Indra Sakra, who is the sage of the gods, or the Muni of the gods, Vema Chitra, who is the sage of the anti-gods, Shakyamuni, who is the sage or Muni of the humans, Stira Simha, who is the sage of the animals, Chavalamukha, who is the sage of the anguished spirits, and Dharmaraja, who is the sage of the hell beings. Accompanying the above array, Samantabhadra and Samantabhadri will also arise before you in the form called Samantabhadra and consort in union, the coalescence which is the progenitor of all the Buddhas.
군도상보다 산지 탐지기 지미 교도 야염니 전철도 원고 롱게라도 십주산니 랑게 닝게냐네 치르토네 쾌랑라 차도 원वे 쾌랑기 답이 나와라 차와 이베 모셔버기시.
These the 42 assembled deities of the Buddha body of perfect resource or Sambhogakaya will emanate from within your heart and then appear before you. Recognize them, for they have risen from within your own pure vision.
계리기부 신감대다장 세네식나 유파마인데 교랑의 닝기 촉시 유당 나나 네바인데 닝기나데 다다치르데 켈라샤와 인노 디 구디남장 sensikne 옹와마인데 교랑기 리페셀레 예네 조바인데 데타라 임바르 모셰바르키시.
O child of Buddha nature, these Buddha fields do not exist extraneously. They are the 5 aspects of your own heart, its 4 directions and center. Emanating now from within your own heart, they have arisen before you. These Buddha bodies have not arisen extraneously. They have spontaneously arisen, temporarily, from the natural expressive power of your own awareness. Therefore, recognize them as they are.
계리기부 고데다자 미체와 미중와 미찬냠바 젠 차로 카도 소소당 덴체 라랑게 찾아다 제때 고데다자 나의 동기 첩차바 나센 레레라 유응의 모치다 제바 여기 차 셈비 리기 셈바다 용기 차 셈비 리기 셈바다 기포 탐제 뒤지라 도브라 철도 온레 네 큐기 이단게 사이베 모셰버기시.
O child of Buddha nature, these Buddha bodies that you see before you are neither large nor small, but perfectly proportioned, and they are all adorned with their respective ornaments, costumes, colors, postures, thrones, and hand gestures. The airway is made up of central couples of male and female deities, forming 5 distinct clusters, and each cluster of 5 is encircled by an aura of 5 colored lights. All the male bodhisattvas of the 5 enlightened families who accompany the male Buddhas, all the female bodhisattvas of the 5 enlightened families who accompany the female Buddhas, and the entire mandala will arise before you, perfectly and simultaneously. So recognize them. They are your own meditational deities.
계리기부 링아 예정 대다기 토가네 예시 주질기 유들 신도 찰라 담바 니메 유들 바타 들와다고 레레케기 니그라 철도 원데 대양 담보 넘버나데 난데기 토가네 추기 인기 예시 깔라 셀와 짤라 냐문가 유들기 남부시 큐랑이 닝가단 절마라 철도 옹 유들기 남부 디에 난도 틸레 깔바 대단데바 멜롱 카보바 삼 신도 셀와 짤라 셀와 디양 랑신기 틸레 낭낭이 젬바 디 타당 유메브라 틸레다 팁팅기 젬바 차도 돌제 템비 토가네 멜롱 타비 예시 팅라 셀와 남비 팅도 틸레 팅가 유유 포바 카보바 삼기 틸레다 팁팅기 젬바 차도 옹어 린진 중딩기 토가네 냠바니기 예시기 냠바니기 예시 셀라 셀와 남비텐도 틸레 셀바 세기 포르바 카보바다고 틸레 틱텐다 제바 차도 옹어 나와 타이기 토가네 또서로도 비 예시 말라 셀와 남비텐도 틸레 말바 예들단덴바 베나 지르 포르바 카보바다고 예시기 띵다다 예시기 띵당 덴바 신도 셀라 세르와 데랑 대양 란싱기 틸레 나이 젬바 디에 타유 미비 틸레다 티팅기 젬바 차도 옹 예남장 쾌랑 닝가당 들므로 차도 옹.
O child of Buddha nature, from the hearts of the male and female Buddhas of the 5 enlightened families, the light rays of the 4 pristine cognitions combined, very fine and clear, like a spider's web, will dawn before your heart, like the entwined light rays of the sun. First, a sheet of radiant white light rays, bright and awesome, indicative of the pristine cognition of reality's expanse, will emanate from the heart of Vairochana and touch your heart. Above this sheet of light, a white seminal point or bindu resembling a mirror facing downwards will arise, emanating light rays extremely radiant, bright and dazzling. Adorned with 5 distinct bindus of like nature, each of which in turn will be adorned by greater and lesser bindus, with no center or horizon. Second, a sheet of radiant blue light, indicative of the mirror-like pristine cognition, will emanate from the heart of Vajrasattva. Above this, like a turquoise bowl, what is it? Bowl, yeah, thank you. A bowl facing downwards, a radiant blue bindu will arise, adorned by an arrow of greater and lesser bindus. Third, a sheet of radiant yellow light, indicative of the pristine cognition of sameness, will emanate from the heart of Ratnasambhava. Above this, like a golden cup facing downwards, a radiant yellow bindu will arise, adorned by an arrow of greater and lesser bindus. Fourth, a sheet of radiant red light, indicative of the pristine cognition and discernment, will emanate from the heart of Amitabha. Above this, like a coral bowl facing downwards, a radiant red seminal point will arise, extremely luminous and dazzling, resplendent with the luminosity of pristine cognition. It too will be adorned with the 5 distinct bindus of like nature, each of which in turn will also be adorned by greater and lesser bindus, forming an array with no center or horizon. All of these lights and seminal points or bindus will indeed arise and touch your heart.
Kirikibu, Denamsam, Kerangi Ripi, Ram Fele Sarwayinde, Senisini Omama Yimbe, Denamla, Chopper Magella, Taparyang Magella, number Mitopingala Lela, Sochi, Diingala, Kudan Yuder Tamsi, Keranla Timne, Sangebara Juru.
O child of Buddha nature, these radiances are arising out of the natural expressive power of your own awareness. They have not come from anywhere else. Therefore, do not be attached to them, do not be afraid of them. Relax and rest in a non-conceptual state. Abiding in this state, all the Buddha bodies and light rays will merge into you, and Buddhahood will then be attained.
Rikibu, Chawa Rupi, Yeshiki, Yu, Changoni, Kiki Ripi, Yeshiki, Kelmatopi, Minamo.
O child of Buddha nature, during the above series, the green light, indicative of the pristine cognition of accomplishment, will not arise.
Rikibu, Tenamni, Yeshi, Shujurgi, Nawasi, Chate, Turji, Sempi, Kongsengi, Lam, Sejao, Diete, Kuki, Mara, Lame, Motripi, Tamatember, Kishi, Kuki, Motriki, Dun Trena, Mara Servi, Nawa, De, Namla, Yichepe. Matang Botreba Taboham, Nara Tipi, Michi, Tonga, Sangi, Mosete, Toto, Chepa Tabo, Ranala, Ranado, Mosepe, Chunji, Nambara Tapi, Lam Jurua Medbar, Tim, Lam Jurua Medbar, Timber Yichipi, Jungi, Dingi Din Kete, Dingi Din Kete, Repulsion of Chimpi Kola Timbi, Longe, Zopi Kura Sangete, Chirmi Togo.
The reason for this is that the natural expressive power of pristine cognition, which is your own intrinsic awareness, is not yet perfected. O child of Buddha nature, this array of luminosities that you are now experiencing is called the vision of the 4 pristine cognitions combined. It is also known as the hollow passageway of Vajrasattva. At this time, therefore, you should recall the oral instructions which your spiritual teacher formally introduced to you. If you successfully recall this former introduction, you will have confidence in the visions that have already arisen, and you will recognize them, just as there is instant recognition at the meeting of a mother and her son, or just as one instantly recognizes an old acquaintance the moment one sees them. Cutting through any doubt, you will recognize these radiances to be natural manifestations of actual reality. Achieving confidence in this way, in the unchanging powers of pure reality, and sustaining a continuous meditative stability, you will dissolve into the Buddha body of great spontaneously present awareness, and irreversibly attain Buddhahood in the Buddha body of perfect resource. You understand everything?
English
If you understand English, then it's understandable, no? It's easy, no?
Kerikibu, Yeshiki, Yedanyamdo Madak Turbi, Nangwa, Rijuki, Ye Chado Wante, Ganshina, Lay Ye Karpa Tang Medbata, Lama Ying Ye Marpa Tang Medam, Mi Ye Marpa, Mi Ye Yamba Tang Medam, and Duty Ye Jamba Tang Medam, Yedaki Ye Serbo Tang Medam, Yelvi Ye Duka Tang Medam, Tukchan, Takpa Yeshiki Yedam, Shimar Chado Wongo.
O child of Buddha nature, together with the radiances of pristine cognition, the 6 dull lights, indicative of the 6 classes of beings who are obscured by impure and bewildering perception, will also arise simultaneously. That is to say, the dull white light of the gods, the dull red light of the anti-gods, the dull blue light of the humans, the dull green light of the animals, the dull yellow light of the anguished spirits, and the dull smoky light of the inhabitants of the hells will arise alongside the radiances of pure, pristine cognition. Yeah, you understand?
Desana Q, Kanla Yan Pimba, Chapar Mi Jipi Nangla, Lila, Sochi, Q, Takpa, Yeshiki, Yula, Touching Madaki, Ritu, Korbi, Yula Chana, Roa Rituki, Lulande, Korva, Dongirgi Champa, Chemba, Tarpi, Du, maybe Wajelo.
At that moment, do not seize upon or become attached to any of these lights. Relax and abide in a non-referential state. For if you are fearful of the pure radiances of pristine cognition and become attached to the impure lights of cyclic existence with its 6 classes of beings, you will assume a body amongst one of these 6 realms, and you will be debilitated, for there will be no immediate opportunity for escape from cyclic existence, this vast ocean of suffering.
Gongi Kudan Taki Yeshiki Yula Jising Dangne, Madak Korbi Yula Chaksu Onwe, Detar Majepar, Dapa Yeshiki Yutala Ferwa Denamla, Mugu Gishi, Jomdende, Ringa Dewarasipi, Tuji, Yeshiki Yuder, Tuji, Thimbala, Jimbara, Tugi, Chatu Chu, Yambe Mebatuila, Turba. Ritugi, Yula, Machak, Mashemper, Sanji Ringi, Yavyumla, Timba, Tejiktu, Tula, Melam, Tekito, Topsi.
O child of Buddha nature, if you are one who has not been introduced to the oral instructions of a spiritual master, you will be frightened and overwhelmed by these Buddha bodies and the radiances of pure, pristine cognition just described, and you will feel attachment towards the dull lights of impure cyclic existence. Do not do this. Be devoted to the bright and dazzling radiance of pure, pristine cognition. Be full of devotion and think. The light rays of pristine cognition, which are the compassion of those gone to bliss, the transcendent lords of the 5 enlightened families, have come to seize me with compassion. I take refuge in them. Do not be attached to the bewildering lights of the 6 classes of beings. Do not cling to them. Focus one-pointedly on the male and female Buddhas of the 5 enlightened families and recite the following aspirational prayer.
Kema Dunga Taki, Korora Chambete, Yeshi Shijur Silvi Yulamla, Chumden Cherwan, Ringi Lamna Chong, Yumchok, Ringi Yumki Chamnature, Mada Rito, Yulam, Jeltosor, Bardo Jipi, Tranle Delnechang, Dapi, Shinchonga Jeltosor, Deter the Molam Dapi, Rap. Rangnando Moshin, Nimito Timne, Sangeto.
Oh, as a Roman cyclic existence driven by the 5 virulent poisons, may the transcendent conquerors, the male Buddhas of the 5 enlightened families, draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the 4 pristine cognitions combined. May the 5 supreme female Buddhas, purity of the expanse, support me from behind, and thus may I be rescued from the light paths of the 6 impure classes of beings, Released from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, may I be escorted to the 5 utterly supreme and pure Buddha fields. By making this aspirational prayer, the superior practitioner will recognize the radiances of pristine cognition to be natural manifestations of actual reality, and thereby, upon dissolving indivisibly with them, Buddhahood will be attained. Those of average ability will achieve recognition on the basis of fervent devotion and thereby attain liberation. And even all those of inferior ability can, through the power of pure aspiration, close the womb entrances through which the 6 classes of beings are born. Thus, if the nature of the 4 pristine cognitions combined is realized, all of the above individuals can attain Buddhahood through the hollow passageway of Vajrasattva.
Tamiyang ta mi yula chigi bakcha yeni dimebi dekchen dang damnyam la sopa kashigi leki chunne motre chang matre bar marala chamso ongwe shak dimba la dakpa kachigi shingamne ridingi saso namge suwa la ongwe diye disu nyumomba timu le chubi ditui yue lamge chang suwa la ongo diye disu yang motre bani.
So then again this coming explanation. As a result of being introduced in such a clear and detailed way, the majority will attain recognition and many individuals will achieve liberation. However, those most lowly individuals in the human world who totally lack the propensities for spiritual practice and those who have broken their commitments and so forth will continue to be bewildered as a result of their negative past actions. Despite being introduced, they will continue to roam downwards, failing to achieve recognition. So it is that on the 7th day, the divine assembly of the awareness holders will arise from the pure realm of the skyfarers and come to escort the deceased, as will simultaneously the light pass to the animal realm formed of the dissonant mental state delusion.
Sediki minye bela diketo, keri kibu, mayembara nyunji, shak dumbala, bakcha, inso takpi, yu chawa shardo wong, di diso, takpa kachi ki shingamne, ridingi laso nam, suwa la wongde, jatang yu do timbi, kirakorgi yuso, nambar mibi, ridin la nambe, pema karge wanchu, jejawa. Kudo yu jangi, dandan denba, yum kandroma, marmo, kula chilwa, Jikotan Tyochaki Kara Tejing, Tatangi Chaja, Namkala Deba Sik, Shado Wongo, Kilkoro, Diishani, Sala Nibi, Ridin, Shejawa, Kudo, Kasing, Sumbi, Tandan Demba, Yum Kadroma Karmo, Kula Chilwa, Jikotan Tyochaki Kara Tejing, Tatangi Chaja, Namkala Deba Sik, Shado Wongo, Kilkoro, Diishani, Sela Wongi, Ridin, Shejawa, Kudo, Sersing Tebi, Pejedan Demba, Yum Kandroma, Thermo, Kula Chilwa, Jikotan Tyochaki Kara Tejing, Tatangi Chaja, Namkala Debasi, Chardo Wongo, Kilkoro, Di Nubni, Chaja Chimbi, Ridin Shejawa, Kudo Marsing, Sumbi Tandan Demba, Yum Kandroma Marmo, Kula Chilwa, Jikotan Tyochaki Kara Tejing, Tatangi Chaja, Namkala Debasi, Chardo Wongo, Kilkoro, Di Jani, Lingyu Chubi, Ridin Shejawa, Kudo Jansing, Shel Chodumdan Demba, Yum Kandroma Jambo, Kula Chilwa, Jikotan Tyochaki Kara Tejing, Tatangi Chaja, Namkala Debasi, Chardo Wongo, Ridin Denamki Chirimdo, Kandromi Sopokdo Mebadang, Turcheki, Kandro, Rishi Kandro, Nisumgi Kandro, Niji Kandro, Yul Nishusashi Kandroma Namdang, Bodang, Pamodang, Gingdang, Chechongwi Somadang, Jeba Tamchi, Ribi Jenjuk, Sornim, Ngadang, Gangdongdang, Tenga, Temadan, Shimbagi Jerdendan, Shimbagi Laredan, Mipagi Laredan, Mipagi Pendan, Misurgi Dubadan, Rolmi, Jeta, Pakto Mebadan, Jeti Kam, Tamche Kemba, Sixi Yom, Gurgurdo, Ongo, Rolmi, Tratam Checha, Go, Geba Samdo, Birni, Ongo, Gara Naso Chishing, Tamsi Chendanki, Suvala Ongo, Tamyam Namla, Cheba Chido Ongo.
At this time, calling the deceased by name, the introduction should be given with the following words. So again, introduction. O child of Buddha nature, listen without distraction. On the seventh day, a five-faceted, multicolored light, which is indicative of the purity of your habitual tendencies in the expanse of reality, will arise before you. Simultaneously, the divine assembly of the awareness holders or Vidyadharas, arising from the pure realm of the skyfarers, will come forward to escort you. In the center of this mandala, suffused by rainbows and light, the unsurpassed Vidyadhara, known as the awareness holder of maturation, Padma Arteswara, will instantaneously arise, his body resplendent with the radiance of the five lights, embraced by his consort Red Dakini, who is dancing with a blood-filled skull and a curved knife raised in the gesture of pointing to the sky. From the east of the mandala, the Vidyadhara, known as awareness holder who abides on the levels or bhumis, will instantaneously arise. His body white in color, his face radiant and smiling. He is embraced by his consort, a white Dakini, who is dancing with a blood-filled skull and a curved knife raised in the gesture of pointing to the sky. From the south of the mandala, the Vidyadhara, known as the awareness holder with power over the lifespan, will instantaneously arise, his body yellow in color and adorned by the exquisite 18 minor marks. He is embraced by his consort, a yellow Dakini, who is dancing with a blood-filled skull and a curved knife raised in the gesture of pointing to the sky. From the west of the mandala, the Vidyadhara, known as the awareness holder of the Great Seal, will instantaneously arise. His body red in color, his face radiant and smiling. He is embraced by his consort, a red Dakini, who is dancing with a blood-filled skull and a curved knife raised in the gesture of pointing to the sky. From the north of the mandala, the Vidyadhara, known as the awareness holder of spontaneous presence, will instantaneously arise, his body green in color, his face both wrathful and smiling. He is embraced by his consort, a green Dakini, who is dancing with a blood-filled skull and a curved knife raised in the gesture of pointing to the sky. Encircling these awareness holders, there will be the inestimable crowds of Dakinis, the Dakinis of the 8 charnel grounds, Dakinis of the 4 enlightened families, Dakinis of the 3 abodes, Dakinis of the 10 directions, Dakinis of the 24 power places, spiritual heroes and heroines, faithful retainers and protectors of the sacred teachings, all wearing the 6 kinds of bone ornaments, playing drums, thigh bone trumpets, and skull drums, and weaving banners made of the hide of ritually liberated beings, canopies and streamers of human hide, the entire display pervaded by an incense cloud of burning human flesh, reverberating with the sound of countless and diverse musical instruments, the sound permeating all world systems, causing them to vibrate, tremble, and quake. The crescendo will reverberate as if to split your head. Performing their diverse dances, this array will come to escort those who have kept their commitments and to bring to account those who have allowed their commitments to degenerate.
Kerekibu Bacha Inso Tapa Lenche Kipi Yeshi, Yu Kato Madan Temba, Ten Gu, Jilwa Tapa, Sisi, Jilwa Tapa, Ta Sisipa, Mermerwa, Chamsamba, Sik, Sella Tampa, Tala Nyamanga, Sik, Ridingi, So, Mai, Topani, Kurangi, Ningi Takar, Migi, Mireba, Samdo, Suni Womo, 대당 냠도 뒤뒤 유장고 장매바 시장 예식의 유단 냠도 사도 대에서 그 박자 출비관계 유팅 유카도 유카도 나된데라 짝진 되니 뒤뒤 유 장매데라 척수 원외 대사나 그 유카도 나된 짝당 젠 데라 마지시 마타시 예시도 모셔버리게시 유기 나는데 탐지기 타 유기 나는데 탐지 취기 랑자 쪽동 기르와삼도 다다라 디르체고 우르자 소자 자자베 장나당 제네고 데라 마지시 마드시 마타시 큐란기 라나 리피에서도 모셔버리게시 뒤뒤 유의정과 짬메데라 마차시 마신시 데라 차나니 디모 뒤뒤 예수 동대 랭국 교르지기 동일 탈레 대반용대 튜비 뒤 미종 데라 마차시 유카도 나덴 셀라 세르바 데라 메바기라 좀된데 리tin 로빙기 사소라 dim바세직도 되라 리빙기 사소 파오다 칸도다 제바 디남 다다과 카주기 네수 소와라 점바르투베 켄남레 켄 다다베 셈진 속 마사과 다샤 펜치 뒤숨게 대ව라시비 링기 사소 대삼기 투지 여드리기 송양 마심바 이 다우자와라 아사마 다니 리tin 사소 켄남기 다디 멘체도 진내자 마당지 투지 자주송시 다과 카지기 신도 다다 코나 장도솔 냠비 dim바 대직도 되라 멜람디기도 톱지
O child of Buddha nature, a five-colored light which is indicative of the purity of your habitual tendencies in the expanse of reality, and of co-emergent pristine cognition, composed of colored threads of light, twisted together, pulsing, shimmering, translucent, radiant, clear, bright, and awesome, will emanate from the hearts of the five principal awareness holders, and will shine piercingly before you at the level of your heart, with such brilliance that your eyes cannot bear it. At that moment, a dull green light, indicative of the realms of the animals, will arise simultaneously with the light of pristine cognition and touch your heart. At this time, bewildered and confused by your past habitual tendencies, you will be frightened by the five-colored light and wish to turn away. Instantly you will be attracted to the dull light of the animal realms. So therefore do not be frightened now by the bright and flashing five-colored light. Do not be terrified. Recognize this radiance to be pristine cognition. Within the five-colored light, all the natural sounds of the sacred teachings will resound like 1,000 simultaneous peals of thunder. They will resound like a violent echo, an overwhelming reverberation, a tumultuous crescendo, a cacophony of war cries, and pound with the roar of wrathful mantras and terrifying ferocity. Do not be afraid, do not turn away. Recognize these sounds and luminosities to be the naturally expressive power of your own awareness, manifesting naturally. Do not be attracted to the dull green light of the animals. Do not cling to it. If you become attached to it, you will fall into the obscured realms of the animals and be enveloped by the limitless suffering of obfuscation, dumbness, and servility, from which there will be no immediate opportunity for release. So do not be attached to that dull green light. Be devoted to the five-colored light that is radiant and dazzling. Focus intently and one-pointedly on the divine assembly of the awareness holders, the transcendent lords and spiritual teachers, thinking, as you, the awareness holders, together with your attending heroes and dakinis, have come forward to escort me to the pure realm of the sky forest, I implore you, pity sentient beings such as myself, who have failed to amass the accumulations of merit and pristine cognition, and pity those such as I who have not been rescued until now, even though we have been embraced by the compassion of all the assembled deities of the five enlightened families. those gone to bliss throughout the 3 times. Today may you, the divine assembly of awareness holders, not allow me to descend any further than this. Grasp me with the hook of your compassion and lead me immediately to the pure realm of the sky forest, focusing intently and one-pointedly on the divine mandala of awareness holders. Recite the following aspirational prayer. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated habitual tendencies, may the divine assembly of awareness holders attend to me and lead me on the path with great love. May the assembly of spiritual heroes and awareness holders draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the luminance of co-emergent pristine cognition. May the supreme consorts, the hosts of Dakinis, support me from behind, and thus may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, and be escorted to the sacred pure realm of the sky forest. By making this aspirational prayer with fervent devotion, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of the divine assembly of the awareness holders, and thereafter undoubtedly be reborn in the pure realm of the sky forest.
Riktam jecha dini motre de tolwa satago songito tamara ge lama cheba ge lama kiwi shin dangwa sosoge kerim sorim tempo ge sama din ko dini sok dimane tempo ti bardol jogu kumare songito drone lama singamlo koya to.
So it says that all types of spiritual friends can attain recognition at this stage, and thus they will attain liberation. There's no doubt that even those with negative propensities can attain liberation at this point. So it means all the teachings that we receive from our Master, all of us who receive Gerim and Dzogchen teachings and practice these, then we will not have to go further on the Bardo. We will, on the 7th day at least, and obtain liberation. So then, if due to our lack of familiarization with the practice, or the lack of our practice or recognition and lack of meditation, then we will not obtain liberation on the 7th day, and will continue in the 8th day.
박차 민마이나야다 딜라코라 돌왈라테니 예바요레 송기도 제 인친이 치키에 봐도 예들 못해 봐다 춘이시 위에 봐도 못해 봐 퇴절 제모 텔로 이 사마야 자자 다디기 지가 봐도 춘이 봐도 살.
So then it says, there's no doubt that even those with negative propensities can attain liberation at this point. This concludes the first part of the Great Liberation by hearing the introduction to inner radiance in the intermediate state of the time of death, and the introduction to the peaceful deities of the intermediate state of reality, iti samaya gya gya gya. So this is the first part of the intermediate state of reality. So then it's exactly the time when we wanted to stop, so let's stop here. Guru Shiredi, Parsing Katuina, or Yana Sunju Tsamshara, the Archilamse Len Sundam, Benza Guru Rimje, not Len Dun Gures, and I'm going to do Sunshara, the Church of Tamala Limji Gures. This was those who were in the Drupche or were not in the Drupche last time Rimji said that this is the tradition of the Doman monastery to do any time you do break or when you finish teaching or any activity you do together in the center, then you do these 3 times Tusum Sang Guru Rimji and 7 times Benza Guru Mantra. And Rimji asked us to do it all in all centers, always, any time